Lunch good? Big lunch, nice warm room. That's a good recipe, isn't it? If you close your eyes, I'm just going to assume that you are carefully considering my words. And that low buzzing noise emitting from your mouth is meditation. How about that? Similarly, if you've got your phone in front of you and you're tapping on it while I'm speaking, I'm just going to assume you're tweeting about how great the presentation is. Does that sound fair? Marvelous. Good. So, my name's Nick McKenna, and I'm going to talk for about half an hour today about there is no Agile. That sounds like fun, doesn't it? This is possibly not the right presentation for an Agile consultant to be giving, is it? Now I think about it, I might be doing myself out of a job here. What to tell you here. When people ask me what I do, I describe myself as a computer programmer. That's pretty much what I spend most of my time doing. About 70% of my time writing code, testing code. I do loads of other stuff, sales, management, all that thing as well. But the thing that gets me excited about life, the universe, and everything is computer programming. I have a first class degree in computer science from Hull. Anybody else go to Hull University? Wow, one person brave enough to admit it. Look at that. When did you go to Hull?
I just finished this year.
Just this year? Wow, fantastic. It's so long ago I barely remember it now. Is anybody from Hull? No.
I went to my home university.
Wow. Right, we'll keep the Hull jokes to a minimum.
Oh no, feel free.
Come on in, come on. But it's some ancient corners right away through here. Is that what we're doing?
No Agile.
Good. I'm a certified Scrum Master, certified Scrum Professional, certified Scrum Coach, all those kind of things. I'm black belt 5th Dan in karate, which we can talk about actually. Does anybody else do martial arts? Yeah, fantastic, great.
You don't live in Hull.
Fantastic, great. What did you do in Hull? What martial arts?
I did judo.
Oh, judo, fantastic. There's not enough judo in the world. There really isn't. Great sport, fantastic. Good. So I run a company called McKenna Consultants, and we do two things: bespoke software development, piece programming, and we do agile coaching, training, consultancy. Two things complement each other really nicely. We set out to create a business that did bespoke software development, and we accidentally created a business that does agile training, coaching, and consultancy. So about 7 or 8 years ago, people would come to me and say, "Oh, Nick, you know about this agile thing? Will you come and talk to us about it?" And that was where it all started from. It was all downhill from there, pretty much. These sort of different types of software we build. Basically, we have no product whatsoever. It's just service, professional service, like lawyers and accountants. Our professional services, software development. Good. I keep looking at the screen, so I've no idea what I'm talking about next. It's really agile, isn't it? It's agile, isn't it? It's terrible, isn't it? Did anybody ever hear that? Oh, it's agile, isn't it? Why do you not do any documentation? Oh, it's agile, isn't it? It's a terrible excuse, isn't it? Agile is not an excuse for cowboy coding, is it? It might be. Good. This is a requisite slide whenever you do a presentation. You have to tell everybody who your clients are, so you can be really impressed by the reflected glory. It's good, isn't it? So, I guess the title for this, it comes back to the martial arts. Do you all know who Bruce Lee is? Bruce Lee's a film star, right? But he was also actually really, really good at martial arts, and he said something that I always remember, which was, before I learned martial arts, I thought a punch was a punch and a kick was a kick. Then I learned martial arts, and I discovered there were many different types of punches and many different types of kick. And then I mastered the martial arts, and I learned that a punch is a punch, a kick is a kick. And for me, that's agile in its essence. I might use some examples from some of the clients I've been working with. So, Howells Associates, a really small little software development company in Harrogate in North Yorkshire. Who's been to Harrogate in North Yorkshire? Yeah, great. Do you expect his tea rooms? Stood in a queue outside? Yeah? Fantastic. Good hour long is that queue, isn't it? Great. So this is a really, really small little company. And then I think Jadu's the next one, so they've got about 70 people, about 35 people who are working there in development, building their own sort of in-house products and stuff. Great little business in Leicester. And then one of our other customers here is EMIS. We've got 250 people there doing development and testing, systems analysis, and all that kind of thing. So, do you think that realistically you could take the same approach to software development and use it in those three environments? No. It's not going to work, is it? Let's talk a bit more about that as we go. So, I don't know how many of these we will get through today. We might get through all five. We might not get past the first one. This is my favourite. There are five kind of themes that I've noticed over the last year or so with teaching, training, coaching, consulting about Agile. So, a couple of years ago when people were phoning me up and asking me about Agile, they were phoning up and saying, oh, we really want to learn about Agile, will you come and tell us what it is? Now when people call us up and ask about Agile, they're saying, well, we've been doing Agile for the last year or so, we've been doing Scrum, that's usually what they say, we've been doing Scrum or Scrumish or Wagile or something like that, we've been doing that for the last year. It's not really working, can you come in and help us out a little bit with it and see where we're going wrong? Because we're doing what it says in the book. That's probably where the problem begins, isn't it? And this is the root of all the problems that I see on a day-to-day basis with Agile teams. Dogmatic adherence to a particular method. You know, Agile is supposed to be this thing that sets us free, like Scrum. It's supposed to be the thing that sets us free. And for some teams, it's not become that, or it's become a prison that they live in every single day instead of a thing that sets them free. So, frequently I ask people, when I go in and look at what they're doing, well, why do you do this? And they say, well, because that's what you do in Scrum. Because that's what you do in DSDN. Because that's what you do in extreme programming. That's a terrible reason to do anything, isn't it? Really, really dreadful reason to do anything. So I have a few personal favourites. Who does sprint planning? There you go. Why do you do sprint planning? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so we can figure out an amount of work that is rational for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
That's why we do it.
Yeah, so that's what we get out of sprint planning. Does anybody else do?
Because we've got complex projects, we want to make sure that the developers focus on the right things for the next week or the next
so
whatever.
choosing what we're going to do. Yeah.
Highlight any particular problems that are likely to come up based on what we're being expected to do.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting use of sprint planning. Yeah. Personally, I'd rather gouge my own eyes out with a blunt spoon than do sprint planning. It drives me insane. It's a lot of people sat around talking about doing work instead of getting on and doing the work. So, what problem are we trying to solve in the first place with sprint planning? Work out what we can do in the next sprint. How long does that really take? 5 seconds? 10 seconds? Do we actually need a meeting to do this? Or are we just doing it because we're doing Scrum? And Scrum says on the first day of the sprint we've got to do sprint planning. What do you think?
I think the decision of what you do it can take quite a short amount of time.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of value in then going on to, as a whole team, discuss how you're going to tackle these problems and break them down. That's not talking about work, that is doing the work.
Yeah, exactly. So this is what we were saying down the front here. Yeah, exactly. You know cargo culting, don't you? You heard the expression? Who's heard the expression cargo culting? There's a victim at the back. Just explain to everybody what cargo culting is, will you?
South Sea Islanders noticed the American troops with all this wealth arriving, and they created little airports and all sorts of things, and then all the wealth left after the end of the war. So they made things that looked like the airports and Nissan huts and what have you, in order to track the goods back. So they took the outer form, but didn't understand what was going on inside it.
Yeah. That's fundamentally what I'm talking about. People doing sprint planning because that's what it says in the book, and they don't fundamentally understand what problem they're trying to solve in the first place. So you get some really great Scrum teams or XP teams or whatever it is that they're doing, and they've got a stable velocity for the team. So in terms of working out what are we going to do in the next sprint, so we do 30 story points in a sprint. So they just add up to 30. Well, that's why it takes 5 or 10 seconds to do sprint planning. So I'm going to drill a bit deeper sometimes with teams as well, and they tell me some terrible things. That we use sprint planning to break our user stories down into technical tasks. Anybody want to admit to that? No. Liars. Oh, there you go, one man. Thank you for admitting to that. Yeah. And I don't know. It doesn't strike me as a valuable activity. Certainly doesn't strike me as something I need to do on the first day of the sprint. Why would I want to pay the price for splitting a user story that I'm not going to do for another couple of weeks into technical tasks on the first day of the sprint? It doesn't sound like a good time to pay that cost, even if I actually ever need to pay that cost. So can I ask you guys, do you have a small number of large user stories? How many user stories do you do in a sprint?
6 or 8?
6 or 8, yeah. So you've got a small number of large user stories, which is frequently why people break them up into technical tasks.
So we only do it when we get a wide variation on estimates.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
if
yeah.
someone says 3, 3 and 13, there'll be some debate, and the result of that debate might be, well, what do you think we've got to do then?
Yeah,
And that might get into
there might be a bit. So let's break it up, and that would be a very sensible approach, wouldn't it? Rather than just taking every single user story and breaking it into technical tasks. We bought a Scrum book 15 years ago. It hasn't really been updated much since. That's insane, really good. What else have we got here? I think one of the key problems of waterfall was actually dogmatic adherence to waterfall, treating it as though it was the way to manage projects, a lack of ability to adapt to change. And I've got to work with a couple of Scrum teams over the last year, and they're quite impressive. I have two Scrum teams I worked with who were doing Scrum, but weren't doing Agile. That's an amazing achievement when you think about it. That takes a lot of work to do. Which actually, we could stop and talk about this for a minute, so you're unleashing.
Have you seen the phenomenon of the mini waterfall, which is the fortnight?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so it's with the rational unified process, wasn't it? Yeah, that's great. Back in the 1990s.
I mean, it's better than a big waterfall.
Yeah. We're at least a little bit better, aren't we?
Yeah.
So, let's stop for a minute and think about what is Agile anyway? Who wants to have a stab? Who's brave? What is Agile? We're all here at a conference about it, do we know?
Not waterfall.
Not waterfall, there you go. Fantastic, what a great, you could be a consultant. Yeah, well done. Anybody else? Wow, somebody should have done a presentation on this, shouldn't they, the last couple of days? I don't know. Honestly, every time somebody asks me this question, I'm sure I give them a different answer.
Lots of different things.
Lots of different things. Also a consultant. Well done there, man. Yeah, it depends. Brilliant. That's the consultant's answer. I sometimes describe Agile as applied common sense. I hate describing it as that because I don't believe in common sense. I think common sense is what politicians say when they have absolutely no justification for their position. It's just common sense, isn't it? The bloke down the pub told me, my dad always said. That's what I think about common sense. So I quite like Agile to be what I have learned about software development. And what I mean by that is, what we think of as Agile today should not be the same as what we think of as Agile tomorrow. In a year's time, things should be very, very different. They shouldn't be the same. When I think about doing karate and martial arts, I started doing karate in 1999. And the karate I do today is radically different from what we were doing all those years ago. Go back another 100 years, it was different again. It's continuously evolving and improving as we learn more and more. What do the Japanese call this? Continuous improvement. Kaizen, yeah. So for me, really, at the heart of Agile has to be that idea. If you don't have that idea in your method of managing projects or doing Agile, you're not doing Agile. So, teams that do Scrum don't do Agile. Frequently, they don't do retrospectives. Retrospectives possibly the most important bit of Scrum. That's the bit, the formal opportunity to inspect and adapt, isn't it? That's the formal opportunity to say, we did not do the best job we could have done in this sprint. We could have done better. Let's think about how. And then a lot of teams actually do retrospectives, and they talk a lot about how they could be better. But they don't do anything about it. Because what they really want to do isn't something that's in the Scrum book. So they get trapped in Scrum. They get stuck with it. They start to think, maybe we shouldn't do sprint planning. Maybe just doing one delivery every 2 weeks isn't such a great idea. Maybe we should do a daily delivery. No, but we can't, because if you read the core Scrum guide, it says one of the products of our sprint is an increment of working software that we deliver at the end of the sprint. It's not supposed to be a prison that traps us out. It's supposed to be the thing that sets us free. There's a lot of reasons why this happens as well, and a lot of it is this certainty and authority. I mean, you guys are all here at an Agile conference. You're unlikely to be afflicted by this. I work with some, interestingly, the bigger the organisation, the more you see this, that there's a feeling, I need the comfort blanket, I need to feel safe and secure. And if there's an authoritative guide, say you must run your projects like this, I'm going to feel a lot better about it. Because my job isn't putting a man on the moon, my job is just doing this bit of testing. There's a lack of that wider awareness in there somewhere. I don't know if any of you ever read some of Mike Cohn and some of those guys in the early days, some of the things they reminisce about. They talk about, there's some disagreement about the year, but it was probably about 2003, 2004. And they talk about when Scrum really started to become popular, and it was because Kodak had been in touch with them. Anybody know this story? And Kodak had said, we really want to buy Scrum. Okay. What does that mean exactly? But that's what all of this is about. We want to buy certainty. There is no certainty, is there? Marvellous. These are just things a little bit about change, and a lot of early Agile stuff is about rebellion and subversion, and, all those great ideas that we should keep alive, which I guess is again why we're here today. Somebody was using the phrase post-Agile, weren't they? You call it whatever you like, but we're continually moving on. We're always post-Agile, we're always post-lean. We should always be a little bit better tomorrow than we were today. So when we say there is no Agile, what I mean is that just because you're doing Scrum doesn't mean you're doing Agile, is it? What else have we got? It's just some of the other things that people sometimes tell me they do in estimating. Design, that's quite interesting. Let's have a think, we might be a lot of common user stories we're doing in this sprint. Maybe it becomes a bit of an architectural thing doing sprint planning. What else have we got? Who does estimating in sprint planning? Anybody do estimating in sprint planning? Yeah, again, it drives me insane. We just end up with, and again, this is maybe personal preference, but when you start to do all of these things, you just end up with one really, really long meeting at the start of the sprint. Whereas I prefer to break all these things and do them as different activities at more appropriate times. That's partially because I really don't like long meetings.
We have a really long meeting at the end of the sprint.
Yeah, brilliant! Wow, what's that one? Tell me about that. Sounds fantastic.
That's exactly the same. It's just a different way of looking at it.
Oh, I see. Great. Yeah, really long meeting. Do my Sweden. Great. So again, this is another sort of particular Scrum thing. Single rhythm for everything. On the first day of the sprint, we do planning, and then on the last day of the sprint, we measure our velocity, we do our review, we do our retrospective, we deliver an increment of working software. Does anybody follow this pattern? This is classic Scrum. There is no reason on earth you have to do this. Why would you want to wait until the end of the sprint to deliver an increment of working software? There is no reason you should need to do that. If you've finished a user story, which is potentially releasable, release it. If you can't release it, solve the problem. Don't use Scrum as an excuse to delay the release until the end. Who does daily releases? Daily production releases? Great, well done. How hard was it to get there?
We did it from the ground up.
Brilliant, great.
It was hard.
Isn't this part of continuous delivery though? Whatever you put in is potentially shippable
Yeah, yeah. Or shipped.
or shipped.
Yeah, that would be even better. Not in Scrum. Not in Scrum.
How come to do more the storage person and storage person value, it's really hard to convey that to the group, and so they find it hard to pick a bit. And I was hoping someone might have done that at some point, but they'll only do them value to them.
In terms of what, sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question.
I've got a big thing, and they'll go, well, we can't use it because it's all done, but if
Oh,
you
right,
spend loads of
yeah,
time,
yeah.
you could dish it out and loads of it, but how do you educate people?
Give them examples. It's belief.
Yeah.
And what they might mean is we want to do a big marketing push, and we'll do that once we've got everything in. But there's so many examples out there now. We talk about minimum viable product. You all know MVP, right? And see, there's so many really great examples out there now. Oculus Rift. Anybody got Oculus Rift? No? Who wants one? $300 for a product that is not ready yet. Quite happy to pay that, no problem. What about Elite Dangerous? Anybody? Star Citizen? Okay, you can pay $100. Yes, Star Citizen, $100 for a game that's not even remotely finished. You can wander around a hangar, can't you? It's amazing what people will pay for. Products that aren't even remotely complete. So examples. 37 Signals are the masters of this, aren't they? Releasing, products which aren't even anywhere near what you would think of as complete products. Yeah, it's one of my pet hates. We have to have all of this stuff done. I think over the years, as an industry, the software development industry, we have to shoulder some of the blame for that. I'm way off that tangent now. This is great. So what we've taught people over the years, one way or another, is that we got really annoyed with our customers and our users changing their minds. How dare they? How dare they not know what they want? So what we've learned over the years is we tell them, right, well, up front, I give you one opportunity. Tell me everything you want. Put it in a specification document, and I'm going to make that part of the contract. We drove that as an industry. We created it, the classic horror show waterfall scenario. So then the customer thinks, right, well, I've got to think of everything that I want then, and they start throwing in the kitchen sink and all the other garbage that they don't really want, but they think they might want, they're not really sure. And I guess that's how we end up in that scenario where the customer says, well, I want all this stuff and I want it by April. That's not really what they mean, is it? What they mean is the first 20% of this stuff I need by April, the other 80% I'm not really that bothered about. Has anybody ever measured the change on a project? I did it on a project for the Ministry of Justice. We measured change. So we did it in story points. So we had a fixed delivery day for legal reasons. There was some new legislation coming in, and we planned to do, I forget how many points, but it was a couple of thousand points over about 20 weeks, something like that. And after 20 weeks, we delivered a couple of thousand points. Brilliant. But when we looked at it, 60% of what we delivered was in that initial spec. 40% wasn't. So they'd thrown out 40% of what was in their big, thick initial spec and replaced it with a completely different 40%. Isn't that great? It's absolutely nothing to do with what I'm talking about today. What a great story. Good. Yeah, so these are just looking at the individual bits about, why do a retrospective at the end? Why not do a retrospective every day? 5 minutes every day. How could we be better tomorrow? Why not? Why wait until the end to do it? Why have one big long meeting at the end? Why not do it every day? Demos. Why wait until the end of your sprint to do a demo? Why not do it every day? I've seen some of my customers do some really clever stuff. I had one customer just started making videos, getting the developers to do videos and burning it onto DVDs. They sent the client a load of DVDs, a big stack of them like this, saying, show it to all the users, and the clients were thrilled. They got a big stack of DVDs, and they realised they only had CD players and computers, so that wasn't quite so great. But what a great idea. But measure, who does story points? Does anybody measure velocity in story points? Yeah? How do you get on with that? No, you got stable velocities? No? Do you know why?
Things change.
Things change, yeah.
Team composition, the amount of research we're doing.
Yeah, team composition's the killer.
Yeah.
team composition drives me insane. Is anybody subjected to the project management resource allocation meeting? There you go, that's a joy, isn't it? So let's answer a couple of basic questions then. If I add a new person to your team, what happens to your team's productivity? It drops, great. If I take a person away from your team, what happens to your team's productivity? It drops, brilliant. So if every week we have a resource allocation meeting and I shuffle people between teams every week, what happens? I've created a permanent suboptimal productivity scenario, haven't I? But I feel like I've got a job because I'm a project manager and I can shuffle people around. That's my job, isn't it? Jobs to the boys. Right, so again, nothing to what I'm talking about today, but what a great story. Good, so single rhythm for everything. Just because Scrum says you've got to do this on the first day and all this stuff on the last day of your sprint, there's no earthly reason you have to do that. And I guess, you know, back in the, I mean, just because you can trace the roots of Scrum back to the mid-80s, can't you? I mean, maybe back then this was quite revolutionary, you know, the idea that you would work in these really short bursts. But the more and more I work with teams over longer and longer periods of time, what you see with the really efficient teams is little by little they start to eliminate a lot of these ceremonies and truncate them and make them smaller, and they realise they don't really need them anymore. You know, they were great at the start, but as time goes on, they're not quite as necessary anymore. Talk too much about this. There's a little bit more about project managers and sometimes testers as well, although less so now, being told that, you know, well, I've read the Scrum book and Scrum doesn't have project managers, so, you know, you're out of a job, aren't you? Right. It's not what project managers want to hear, really, is it? Why would Scrum not have the notion of a project manager? Anybody know why?
I think the assumption is a project manager's team managing several Scrum teams.
Yeah.
So they're not directly involved with because we're talking about relatively small pieces of work.
Yeah, right. There you go.
So, and the project manager's job is to filter the crap coming from the board into things that the small teams can do. So it's not like the role doesn't exist. It's just it's not formally.
Yeah, it's not formally part of Scrum. Yeah. Actually, one of my clients almost uses those words as a job description of project managers, the crap filter. That's what they describe it as. It's your job. Stand in front of the team. Interesting. I think one of Mike Cohen's blog entries again. He was not really talking about this, but he was talking about something else in when it was about Scrum and the development of it. And he was saying, what you've got to remember in the early years is Scrum was small projects, small teams, small companies, which is kind of what you were saying about smallness of work. Scrum was designed for small, wasn't designed for big. As soon as you try and scale up, that's when you start to need project managers. Because I only drew, I don't fit 6 circles on there, but one of my customers has project managers, and their job is to integrate with a huge number of third parties. And you know, in a large environment, you've probably got a team that looks after the hosting rather than somebody on your team who does hosting. DBAs, has anybody got a separate DBA team? Yeah, very, very common. And it's for economic reasons. You know, you got 25 teams of 10 people. You don't need 25 DBAs. You might just need 3 or 4. The economics don't work out. So yeah, just because Scrum doesn't have project managers doesn't mean you don't need project managers. You've got to work these things out for yourself. Which is what Bruce Lee was talking about. You've got to work things out for yourself. Apply common sense. That's good. Unhappy team. Anybody got an unhappy team? Yeah? Just because we're going to do Agile doesn't mean everybody's going to be happy. You probably need to move a little bit beyond that. It's one of the flaws of the resource allocation meeting, I think. We just assume all people are equal. So we've got 7 people on the team, so everybody does 7 hours work a day. So if I had another person, I get another 7 hours worth of work, don't I? People are just interchangeable, aren't they? And of course they're not interchangeable. And Agile methods aren't really very big on this, about looking at how do we create teams. Has anybody ever done any psychometric profiling, Belvin analysis or anything like that? Yeah? Some of that's massively useful stuff, really, really interesting. You can take all of what you might think of as your organisation's best developers and stick them all in a team, and they can produce absolutely nothing because they've all got leadership personality types. And you put them all together in a team, and all they do is spend all day arguing about the best way to do something and don't get anything done whatsoever. There's more to it than just putting people together. Structuring teams and personality profiling and all those kind of things. I would caution you against going over the edge though. I was talking to a company last year who was part of their recruitment process. We're doing handwriting analysis. Voodoo! Sorry, I'm not supposed to discriminate on religious grounds. I hope nobody's religion is voodoo, is it? Good. Okay, we're about there, guys. Let's have a look at what we got last. Is it something? There we go. Just a couple of innovations. Who's this? You know who this is? Hurricane predictor. Yeah, Michael Fish. I just include this because it's just some nice ideas people have had to change the way their team works. So it's Dorothy who came up with the idea. I think she actually stole it from somewhere, which is the best place to get your ideas instantly. Just steal them from somewhere else. She has a daily stand-up. She gives everybody these little icons. For those of you that are nice and elderly like me, you'll remember that Michael Fish used to have these magnetic things, didn't he? They used to stick on a board, show what the weather was like. So she has in her team some sunshines and all that kind of thing. And she gets everybody holds one up every morning, say what kind of mood they're in that day. I'm in a bad mood. Today's not the day to come to me with your problems, you know. What else have we got here? Some adaptations of burn downs, I think. So this is really interesting. There's this particular client who's got quite a fixed budget that they want to work to. So we can look at the percentage of budget spent against the percentage of story points completed. So it's kind of adapting the burn down idea to work in a different context. So as long as the budget spent is less than or equal to the points completed, we're doing all right on this particular project. It's a really nice little feedback mechanism. It's just one of my team members came up with the idea. It's a really great way of representing some information without being stuck with just a burn down. One of the worst examples of cargo culting I ever witnessed was a burn down chart. It was a team medical company that every single morning updated their burn down chart. We were doing 2-week sprints, and every single sprint without fail, the line on the burn down chart was a straight line until the last day when it just dropped. Why are you drawing the diagram? Well, because that's what you do in Scrum. Right, well, the diagram's telling you something and you're not willing to do anything about it. Save yourselves 5 seconds every day and stop drawing the diagram. You're not paying any attention to what it's telling you. You're not willing to do anything about it. This is another interesting one. This is a particular client who books a certain number of, I think this is hours per month. So their budget a certain number of hours they'll pay us to do every single month. So we just burn that down so we know whether we're doing too much or too little work for them. So they're not getting any surprises and we're not getting any surprises. So really nice, again, adaptation, the burn down idea. I have another client who was making videos and they were burning down scenes. They were doing like these internet marketing videos. So they'd film 40 scenes, so they'd burn down 40 scenes over a couple of days. Great little adaptation, a little innovation. What else have we got? Declining velocity. Has anybody got declining velocity? Anybody? Anybody want to admit it's declining velocity? Yeah? Slowly declining. Yeah? It's worth drilling into why, because there's lots of reasons why that might be happening, and it might just be drift in estimation. That might be all it is, might not be a problem. But one of the things that I find is that Agile is quite relentless. Whereas Waterfall, you can sort of kind of take a week off at your desk, can't you? And nobody will really notice, because you're doing a 6-month release and nobody really notices if you have an easy week. Agile is absolutely relentless in its pace. Even if it's sustainable, the velocity, it can be absolutely relentless. So I think, and go back and tell your boss this is really important. You need some kind of diversion occasionally. So we all went to, it's up in the northeast, we went to Croft, we had a racing day, went driving single-seaters around the track, it was awesome. Does anybody like Formula 1? Formula 1? Monza this weekend, right? Everything you need to know about Agile you can learn by watching the Monza Grand Prix this weekend. Formula 1 race is just the most agile experience that you could possibly have. watch it and enjoy it, it'd be great. I think Roscoe's going to win. I think this is all partially to do with knowledge work as well. You're using your brain, and with that relentless delivery, your brain can get a little bit tired. So I think it is worth giving people the freedom to take a break when they need to take a break, rather than sliding into this slowly declining velocity scenario. What else did we do? Oh, football stickers during the World Cup. We got all the team football stickers. That was brilliant. It was really, really great. Everybody was really excited about football stickers. I was excited. I like football, and I was really excited about it. Does any of that ring true for you guys with declining velocity? Do you think that could that be a contributory factor? Is it the cadence?
They sort of get complacent as well.
Yeah.
Never ending cycle.
I've got like another 10-minute rant about that as well, but I'm running out of time. I'm really sorry about that. If you want to come and talk to me about code reviews and stuff, come and talk to me about that. I have a whole special rant about it. That's great. Well, we'll bring it to a close there. I've run over a little bit. Whoops, sorry about that. If you've got any questions, we've got a stand out there, McKenna Consultants. But otherwise, thank you very much for listening. It's been great talking. Yeah.